Hello everybody, Marcos Villegas here in Los Angeles, being joined with the head of Ringstar Sports, Mr. Richard Schaefer. And Richard, promoter, you've promoted some of the biggest fights in history, been a part of a lot of deals. Recent developments in the world of boxing, the Dazn deal, that Eddie Hearn has a $1 billion war chest. You being such an influential promoter, what's your initial take of it? How do you see it playing out? And is it good for the sport in general?
Well, what I've learned, not just in boxing, but generally, if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So who knows if it's $1 billion? I've heard it's a 2-year deal, and that's why Eddie is not going to be able to really offer long-term deals to fighters, which I think in itself is a bit of a problem, because if you ask a fighter to leave his current environment and join a new platform without subscribers and a promoter without fighters, and you ask some of these fighters to leave their current environment into a new situation where after 2 years it could be over if they don't deliver subscribers. It's a bit a risky proposition, and I think that's why Eddie hasn't really been able, since he announced it, to sign up some of those fighters. And I think some of those fighters, they realize, what if it's the Charlos, what if it's a Mikey Garcia or a Deontay Wilder or an Errol Spence or others, or Adrian Broner. These are fighters which are right on the cusp of becoming pay-per-view stars. And Eddie thinks that a pay-per-view star is somebody who does 1 million homes. That's not really the case. You build your way up, just like you do in any walk of life. You build your way up. You've got to start somewhere. Floyd Mayweather didn't start with 1 million homes. I remember he did against Carlos Baldomir 350,000 homes, and then we built it up, and he became the king of all time, the pay-per-view king. Who would have thought? And we broke and shattered all these records together. And so I think these fighters today, the names I just mentioned, they have the same dreams. And when Oscar de la Hoya retired, I got a call from the head of HBO, and he was telling me, well, it's going to be a long time before somebody's going to come and break these pay-per-view records Oscar established. I really don't know who it could be. I said, don't be so negative. I tell you who it's going to be. It's going to be Floyd Mayweather. And nobody believed me. And when I said, you can probably look back in the archives, when I said, Floyd is going to break these pay-per-view records, nobody believed him. Nobody believed us, and we broke the records. We shattered them. And today I'm saying these records are here to be broken, and somebody will come and break them. And most likely it's going to be one of those guys I just mentioned, or maybe all of them. And why would they go into a platform where Eddie publicly stated several times there's going to be no pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view is flawed in the United States. So you basically, as a young fighter, you subject yourself to the pot the subscription service is going to make available. And that pot is going to be split up, and that is the pot. End of story. So you basically limit yourself. There's going to be no upside. Do you think if Floyd Mayweather would have joined back in the day a platform like that, he would have ever made 100 million, 200 million, 3, 4, 500 million per fight? No, because he would have been tied to that budget. And so I think, at the surface, it looks attractive, it looks big, it's a big number, it's a big announcement. It certainly, made headlines, and I think a lot of people like, whoa, $1 billion Eddie. As they say, it's not all gold that glitters.
To you, what you mentioned, you feel it's flawed, but overall, seeing that type of money go into the sport of boxing and knowing that money's there, that's a good thing, right?
I think it's great for, I'm very happy for Gabriel Rosado. If in fact it's true that Chavez Jr. signed, I'm very happy for him. I hope they're going to end up making a lot of money. And for those guys, hopefully they get the $2 million they offered to Broner. Hey, I'm very happy for them.
Oscar mentioned that this kind of feels like a PBC Part 2. What do you make of that? Is that a right comparison, you feel, or how do you take that?
Oscar's very jealous of PBC. And so I think you've got to just have to move on. All these people who have media guys, some of the other promoters who keep trying to pull down PBC. Let's look at the facts. Let's just look at the facts. PBC has the best stable. Nobody can argue that. PBC does the best fights on a regular basis. Once in a while, Golden Boy puts Canelo in, hopefully with Triple G. If they're going to put in Canelo versus Spike Sullivan, okay, or for that matter, Lemieux, and then, Arum has good fights once in a while. But if you look on a consistent basis, love him or hate him, just be objective. Be objective. PPC delivers the best fights. One could have argued in the very beginning of PPC that wasn't the case. But the last 2 years, certainly, PPC has delivered night after night and fight after fight the best fights. We see it here, a terrific doubleheader. So it's not fair to keep on attacking PPC. Or some people say PPC was a failure. Why was it a failure? How do they know? I mean, it doesn't seem to me to be a failure. Today, PPC is involved in some of the biggest fights on the biggest platforms, attracting the biggest number of eyeballs. So how is that a failure? Because some people write, well, somebody invested like few $100 million and all the money is gone. How do they know? Are they the accountants of PPC? Are they the accountants? And by the way,
You know?
no, I know.
Is the money gone?
No, it's not. So, look.
How much is left?
Anybody who talks shit about PPC are frankly jealous people who don't know the facts. The facts speak for themselves, and I think what PPC has done for the sport of boxing, they have brought a lot of exposure to the sport, and they sort of like broken up the status quo. And I am sure a lot of the things that happen, whether it is Dazn or whether it is ESPN going all in, or whether it is Showtime, becoming the dominant player, utilizing all these streaming platforms as well, and so on. A lot of it has to do with the fact that PPC believed in boxing. Al Heyman believed in boxing, and he elevated the sport. So instead of all these critics out there, be it promoters or managers or media members or fans, instead of them all being on Al Heyman's ass, they should say, thanks, Al. Thanks for elevating the sport, because that is exactly what happened. Love him or hate him.
The whole streaming platforms, you see ESPN Plus coming out as well. How do you see the future with that? And what's your take on that? Because for me, I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted where it's having to spend more money for more fights. I like being able to see the fights free, but you are getting a lot of shoulder programming with it, so I'm still kind of in the middle.
Well, I think it's early on. It's early on in the streaming process, but it's clearly here to stay. I think this is going to be a new form, a new platform to watch live content. I mean, there's a reason why all this money, all these smart people are investing substantial amounts of monies in that. They see that as the delivery platform for sports content of the future. I think today we're still in the early stages, so it's sort of like difficult to really figure out what is happening. But you are absolutely right. I mean, if again you just look at the facts today, if I used to pay for my HBO subscription and my Showtime subscription, and once in a while a pay-per-view fight. That's how I consumed boxing. That's how most of us consumed boxing. But now you suddenly have, certain fights are going to be on ESPN Plus. So now you need to subscribe to the ESPN streaming platform. That's an additional $5. It's not that bad. But then if the Zone now comes and they're going to start showing boxing, which is relevant to the US, assuming they can get the talent, then you're going to have to spend another $15 or $20. So
is that what you heard? It's going to be 15, 20?
That's what I've heard, but who knows? Because in Canada, I think they charge 20 Canadian. So
around that price point then?
I would assume, but I don't know. But let's say it's similar to what they charge in Canada. It adds up. I mean, if you suddenly, let's say it's 15 and $5 for ESPN is another 20 times 12, that's another $240, and then you still have some pay-per-views, and you still have the other two, the HBO and the show. So it's getting basically right now, it's getting more expensive to be a boxing fan, and hopefully some other players will enter the market, and where more boxing can be consumed without really having to go into your wallet.
Do you see it being splintered like this? Like, do you think this will be the norm where we're just going to have to consume from different streaming apps? Or do you think it'll get centralized again?
I don't think boxing will ever be centralized. The level of entry to be a manager, to be a promoter, to be whatever, it's very low. And so I think you're always going to have different networks, different platforms, different promoters. I think what you're going to see as well, as much as I like to say it's not going to be the case, but you're going to see certain promoters tied in with certain platforms, and these platforms are investing heavily in boxing, and they expect their promoter to make his talent available to their particular platform, like for example Eddie does in the UK with Sky. I mean, he has an exclusive with Sky. His fighters are on Sky. His fighters rarely ever fight on Box Nation or BT Sports, and the same is with Frank Warren, who is with BT Sport. The same is here with the Arum fighters on ESPN. They're going to be on ESPN. Arum is getting money from ESPN to deliver fights to ESPN. Arum isn't getting money to build up fighters on ESPN and then put these fights on the Zone or on Showtime or on HBO. I mean, it's normal. You can't blame the network and you can't blame the promoter. Same is with Showtime, who is tied in with Al, or for that matter, Golden Boy with HBO. So, this is always going to be, and it's always going to be more the exception than the norm when you see fights are being made between these different rival groups, and that's only going to happen in two circumstances. One of them, if it's a mandatory, and the other one, if the money is so overwhelming, like we saw with Mayweather and Pacquiao, where a solution needs to be found. But other than that, you can forget it.
That's just another problem that I didn't even think of, to be honest, because then you have a guy that's, I can only fight on ESPN. You're a Showtime fighter. I can't fight you, even though people want a unification. Or just blew my mind with that one. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. And the more players, the more platforms you're going to have entering the sport, the more fractured that whole marketplace is gonna become. And what is is there a solution? Can there be like somebody come in and buy all the promoters and make one big league? I guess that's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You got to have Bill Gates money in order to go ahead and do that. By
the way, just looking on from my old background, the financial background, I mean, I do believe that boxing is an unbelievable opportunity. It's the last true live sport which one can acquire and control all the rights. I mean, when I say all the rights, the sponsorship rights, the domestic TV rights, the foreign TV rights. So all these, the live gate revenues, all these rights for a boxing event are available. It's the last live sport where that's the case. So somebody with a very substantial amount of money would actually come in and do such a global roll-up. I think they would end up making a lot of money.